Hello there everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Botox Games, and today I want to talk about Nintendo Switch's lineup in 2024. Many people think that the Switch 2 is releasing next year, while I maintain the idea that I think a March 2025 release makes a little bit more sense for Nintendo. And when I mention that, a lot of people say, well, what do you think they're going to release in 2024? So today I wanted to make a video talking about what we know is coming out from Nintendo in 2024 and speculate. This video will be mostly speculation about what we could see released on the Nintendo Switch in 2024 in its final full year on the market, and I'm actually pretty optimistic. I know there's a lot of disdain for the amounts of remakes coming out next year. We already know about, what, 4 games next year that are remakes and or remasters. So when people see that, they think, oh, it's going to be a bad year. But when I look at the current lineup for 2024, I get excited because usually at this point in the year, we don't know that many games coming out in the following year. If you follow Nintendo, you know that they like to hold their cards close to their chest. They announce games a few months, sometimes even just a few weeks before they release. So I think, you know, once we get to that February Direct, and really, I mean, honestly, they can hold their cards until June or July. I mean, just think about this for a second. I think like 1/3 of the games released in 2023 were announced more than halfway through the year. That is crazy. So when I see that Luigi's Mansion 2 and Another Code Recollection and Mario vs. DK and Paper Mario Thousand Year Door and of course Princess Peach Showtime as well, when I see that lineup for 2024, I don't look at that as a bad thing. I look at that and think, oh wow, we already know this much. Let's see what else they use to fill in the gaps for 2024 if it is to be the Switch's last full year. So let's go ahead and get into this. So in 2023, Nintendo released 14 games by my count. I might have counted wrong, but that's 15 if you include Future Redeemed, I believe. I think a lot of us would consider Future Redeemed a full game. So for this list, I'm actually going to count Splatoon 3's side order expansion, kind of like its own little thing. So given that, I would expect around 12 to 14 games to release this year, a little bit less than 2023, though in 2022, Nintendo released like 11 games, so it really just depends on the freaking flow of the wind, it feels like. The fact that 2023 had more Nintendo published games than 2022 is very weird, so it's really hard to predict how many games they could release. I mean, they could release more for all we know, or it could be substantially less. I'm going to assume they will release about 14 games in 2024. I have 18 things listed here, but I think 14 would probably be around that number, so I'm going to go through the list, and then maybe we'll figure out what games we can cut from the year to kind of make this all fit. So starting off with the games we know about, in January, we have Another Code of Recollection. This is a remake of the Trace Memory games. If you don't know what that is, I don't blame you. This is a very niche series that was on the DS and then the Wii in Europe. Cool to see this getting remade. Definitely a lower stakes title. Then in February, we have the Mario vs. Donkey Kong remake. Once again, kind of a lower stakes thing, but cool to see Mario vs. Donkey Kong getting some love. I know people feel a certain type of way about the series, but I've always really enjoyed it, even when they were pumping them out like every year. I've always really liked this franchise, and I'm excited to see them give NST another chance with the series, and hopefully this leads to another new game. And then in March, we have Princess Peach Showtime, the only game announced for 2024 that is new and confirmed for 2024. I'm really excited about this. I'm excited to see who's developing it. I think a lot of people at this point either assume it's Intelligent Systems or maybe just being done internally at one of Nintendo's EPD groups, but time will tell. I'm curious to see more of this. Last time we saw it, it looked a little bit more minigame compilation-y than I was expecting, but I'm excited to see what they do with this. Then, of course, we have, without a date, Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, which I would assume would come out in the first half of the year, although maybe not. And then Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door, once again, I would hope this is maybe before September. I don't think it should release any later than that. I'm thinking maybe July for this one, so maybe Luigi's Mansion 2 HD in like May, and then Paper Mario in July. But maybe they'll spread it out a little bit more. Maybe Luigi's Mansion 2 will come out closer to Halloween. That'd be a very long announcement to release for a port of a 3DS game, but I digress. And then, of course, like I said, I'm counting Splatoon 3 side order. If I'm counting Future Redeemed for 2023, it's only right to count Splatoon 3 side order, which I believe we know is coming out in spring, so that should be a pretty meaty expansion to Splatoon. And then just going straight into the speculation zone, there's only one other currently announced Nintendo game that is not confirmed for 2024, and that is Metroid Prime 4. I have predicted Metroid Prime 4 to release every year since it was announced, and I feel like now has to be the time. If it's being saved for Switch 2, then I think it'll be 2025. Either way, even if the Switch 2 came out in 2024, I think Metroid Prime 4 would not be a launch title for that. So I think either it's coming out as a Switch 1 only game this holiday, probably in October, kind of like when Metroid Dread came out, or it's going to be on both platforms and it releases next spring. but I want to lean towards this game releasing in 2024. By the time this would potentially come out, it'll have been 3 years since Metroid Dread came out, and I feel like that's just... Honestly, we're already getting to the point where it's like, that's a little bit too long. In fact, on my list here, I put Metroid Prime 4, but also there's Metroid Prime 2 and 3 remastered, what you can maybe expect, or maybe not remastered to the scale that Prime 1 was, but ports, that kind of thing. And honestly, even a new 2D game from Mercury Steam, like I said, by the time October rolls around in 2024, it'll have been 3 years since Metroid Dread came out. Safe to assume Mercury Steam is working on another 2D game. I do wonder if that is a remake of Fusion or Super Metroid, or maybe even just a port of Samus Returns. That would be a great game to pad out the release lineup, especially if Metroid Prime 4 isn't ready for 2024. Getting another 2D Metroid game on Switch, I know people would rather have that stay for the Switch too, but that wouldn't shock me. I mean, Samus Returns came out after the Switch release, and I remember people being very upset it wasn't a Switch game. It would kind of be a nice full circle moment to have that game ported to the Switch. So I think something Metroid, be it Prime 4, be it Prime 2 and 3, or be it a new 2D Metroid game or a remake of a 2D Metroid game, I think something will release around October. And then getting into the fully unknown, I think alongside Metroid in October, we're actually going to be seeing a bit of a repeat of 2021 here. So this is what I predict Nintendo's holiday lineup will look like. October will be Metroid, but also in October will be a new Mario Party game. We've gotten a Mario Party game every 3 years, but if you look before that, before Super Mario Party came out on the Switch, IndieCube was releasing a new party game, a new Mario Party game, pretty much every year on the 3DS or the Wii U, or there's that year where they did Mario Party 10 and Amiibo Festival, or Wii Party U was also in there. Like, IndieCube output has been a lot slower recently than it used to be, and maybe that's good. You know, their games have certainly gotten better than they were during the Wii U days, but I think something from them makes a lot of sense, and Mario Party's a consistent seller. Even if the Switch is, you know, dying off and sales really slow down next holiday, a Mario Party game is pretty much guaranteed to be a pretty massive success. And then, to fully replicate the 2021 holiday season, I think the big November game would, of course, be a Pokemon game. Now, is this Black and White remakes? Is this a new Legends game? That remains to be seen, but I think it's a pretty safe assumption that we will be getting a new Pokemon game, a new mainline Pokemon game of some kind in November, which would pretty much perfectly replicate 2021 with Metroid Dread, Mario Party Superstars, and of course Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. I would expect that to be pretty much the holiday lineup. Maybe throw in a little curveball, maybe a Ring Fit Adventure 2 in there, but I think that would be the core 3 games they promote in the 2024 holiday season for the Nintendo Switch. Reeling it back though, that's a holiday lineup. There's still a lot of other space throughout the year, early months of the year. Of course, that period between like May and September, there's really seemingly nothing in, except for maybe Thousand Year Door and Luigi's Mansion. So what could come out then? Well, I mentioned Mario Party. I think Mario Sports is also, it's about time. Camelot's last game was Mario Golf Super Rush, which came out in 2021. They release a game every 3 years. This would line up. Is it safe to assume we'd get a Mario baseball game? I don't think so. I think what would be more likely would be a Mario Sports Mix, Mario Sports Superstars style game. I would love if Nintendo let Camelot kind of stretch their legs a little bit. Instead of getting a sports game, maybe we get a Golden Sun remake. That would be freaking awesome. But I think a Mario Sports game makes a lot of sense for next year. And as we've seen with the Wii and the 3DS, they seem to like to do those sports compilation type games at the end of a life cycle. I believe Mario Sports Mix came out in like, what, 2010 or 2011, and then Mario Sports Superstars came out in 2017. So to me, it makes sense to do another Mario Sports kind of compilation, lower stakes, lower effort. I would assume Camelot's also already working on the next Mario Tennis game for the Switch too. I think that's a pretty safe assumption. They like to get those out early. But a Mario Sports kind of compilation game in the late spring months, I think makes a lot of sense. And then there's another game that we have had serious rumors about from Emily Rogers. That is a remake of Fire Emblem 4, Fire Emblem Genealogy of the Holy War. There was stuff found in the files, and people, you know, run around the code for Fire Emblem Engage. I believe, let me get this straight here, Fire Emblem Engage is listed as Fire Emblem 19 or FE19. Three Houses in the code is listed as FE17, meaning that Intelligent Systems and Nintendo are most likely sitting on a fully finished Fire Emblem game, and I believe Emily Rogers reported that that would be Fire Emblem 4. That's a fan favorite game, so it makes sense to finally remake that and get it localized, I believe for the first time, right? This would also explain why they shotgun blasted all of the Fire Emblem Engage DLC earlier this year. They probably wanted to have as much of a separation period between that game releasing and the Fire Emblem remake being announced as possible. I would expect Fire Emblem 4 Remake to be the kind of opener for the February Direct. They usually open Direct, so I think that makes a lot of sense. So just pausing for a moment, even if we didn't get anything else, to be honest, that wouldn't be the worst lineup in the world. That's 10 games, another code, Mario vs. DK, Princess Peach Showtime, Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, Thousand Year Door, Splatoon 3 Side Order, so DLC there, Metroid Prime 4, Fire Emblem 4 Remake, Mario Party game, a Mario Sports game, and of course Pokemon, so 11 things. That would not be horrible in my opinion, but I do expect more because based on Nintendo's patterns, there are certain things that I think we have to expect next year, and one of those things is a Zelda game. This was a long time ago at this point, but Reggie went on record saying that they like to have something new Zelda-related on store shelves every single year. And for the most part, with the exception of 2022, I believe, they've held true to that. And of course, some years they've even had more than one thing. Back in 2019, they released Cadence of Hyrule as well as Link's Awakening. So I don't know what it'll be, but I think it is very safe to expect some sort of Zelda project to be released in 2024 on the base original Nintendo Switch. Be that Wind Waker, be that Twilight Princess, or ideally, be that something new entirely. We have not gotten a new 2D Zelda game, and it's so long. You know, I think I've personally given up hope for a single-player 2D Zelda game, but give us a multiplayer game. Give us a Four Swords Adventures remake or something. Something like that would be really exciting, lower stakes, save the new 2D game for the next console, but have a multiplayer game more akin to Triforce Heroes and Four Swords. I think that would make a lot of sense. And I mentioned this in another video at some point. With Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, I don't really know what to believe anymore. I feel like if those games were going to happen on the Switch, I think 2022 was kind of like the last bastion of hope for that game. Getting them out before Tears of the Kingdom would have made a lot of sense, but now that we're at this point, I feel like Nintendo needs to kind of hold those 3D Zelda games and almost in like a vault, you know, like they're doing with the 3D Mario games. You know, they're running out of 3D Zelda games to remake and remaster. I feel like saving Wind Waker HD for another remaster on the Switch 2 makes a lot of sense, and frankly, and this might be a whole video, people are talking about Ocarina of Time remake, myself included. I think I was one of the first people to even mention that like 2 years ago, as like a serious like idea that I was having. I think a Twilight Princess remake in maybe 5 or 6 years also is not out of the realm of possibility given that game's success. So I think Wind Waker and Twilight Princess would likely be saved for the next console. So I think next year we will see some sort of 2D Zelda smaller project from either Zelda team, maybe it's Grezzo, who knows, but definitely not a 3D Zelda game next year. I don't think so. Two more things we need to talk about regarding patterns. Nintendo has published a Square Enix game almost every year of the Switch. Let me try to think about this off the top of my head. In 2018, they had Octopath Traveler and The World Ends With You Final Mix. In 2019, they had Dragon Quest XI-S as well as Dragon Quest Builders 2. I think 2020 had nothing, but then 2021 had Bravely Default 2, and 2022, of course, had Triangle Strategy as well as Live Alive. So they're HD 2D games, the games that Team Asano makes. They seem to like publishing those, at least in America. I think it's safe to expect another smaller Square Enix game from Square Enix being published by Nintendo in America. Oh, of course, in 2023, we also had Super Mario RPG as well. So I think something else is safe. They're doing the Dragon Quest III HD 2D game. They have not announced platforms for that, but since it wasn't announced in a Nintendo Direct, I would think that probably isn't being published by Nintendo, but maybe. I could totally see Square Enix wanting to do a Bravely Collection, Bravely Default and Bravely Seconds, and have those come to Switch, and maybe Nintendo would publish that. So once again, not a new game, ports, remasters, remakes, whatever you want to call that, but I think something from Square Enix will be published by Nintendo next year on the Switch. I just hope, I really hope it's not another HD 2D game. I think they need to let those breathe for a little bit, especially with the Dragon Quest III one already being announced. Let's let that sit for a bit. Star Ocean Second Story R was such a fresh looking game. Let's maybe do something more like that this time with Nintendo kind of publishing it in the West. And then the other pattern that we need to talk about here, not necessarily a pattern or anything, but just kind of speculative thinking here, a new Warriors game. If you've been watching my channel, I've been saying this all year long. In fact, I even thought it would be announced in the September Direct. I think Xenoblade Warriors pretty much has to happen. Similar to Zelda, Nintendo's never said this, but similar to Zelda, it feels like Xenoblade has almost become annualized. It feels like every year of the Switch, there's been something really nice for Xenoblade fans to chew on, and a Warriors game outside of Fire Emblem and Zelda just makes a lot of sense. They've already done 2 Fire Emblem Warriors games. They've already done 2 Zelda Warriors games. I think if they were to do another Nintendo franchise and adapt it in that Warriors gameplay, Xenoblade as a non-canon, fun fan service game just makes so much sense. I think most Xenoblade fans would show up to that. It's a late life cycle game, so there wouldn't be that high of expectations for it. And by the time this comes out, Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes will be, I think it'll be the longest gap between a Nintendo Warriors game. It'll be over 2 years, because in 2014 we had Hyrule Warriors, then in 2016 we had Hyrule Warriors Legends, then in 2017 we had Fire Emblem Warriors, 2018 Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition, 2020 we had Age of Calamity, and then 2022 we had Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes. So the timing is definitely right for another Warriors game, a collaboration with Nintendo and Koei Tecmo, and I think Xenoblade is the perfect fit for that. Maybe they do a Tears of the Kingdom Warriors, maybe that kind of combines in with my Zelda theory of having a Zelda game. Maybe we get another Zelda Warriors game. Maybe a direct sequel to Hyrule Warriors that is more fan servicey from all aspects of the franchise. That could be cool too. But for my money, as a Xenoblade fan, I would love to see Xenoblade Warriors, just to have another Xenoblade game kind of to play on Switch, frankly. I need to see all those characters together, interacting, doing cool specials. I love Warriors games. I know they're not for everybody, but I really enjoy them, and I think Xenoblade just makes a lot of sense to fit that gameplay style. And then we have a couple more games here. At this point, we're kind of in the in my opinion, really wishful thinking category of what I think these games make sense to release and be announced, but maybe that's just me coping. So the main one, and I've done videos on this, if you follow my channel, you know, Tomodachi Life is one of the best-selling 3DS games. It's in the top 10 best-selling 3DS games. I can't believe they haven't done that on Switch yet. They already put Miitopia on the Switch, and they added that really fancy new meme maker. Grezzo did a fantastic job putting that game on the Switch with new features. It feels like such a waste not to do Tomodachi Life. There is a clear community and outcry for a new Tomodachi Life game, or even just an enhanced ports of the 3DS game. Tomodachi Life is, I think, 10 years in 2024, 10 years old, so the timing seems right to me. A late life Switch game, this would probably do pretty well. I think this makes a lot of sense. I do wonder where exactly it'd fit in, but I think Tomodachi Life, if it's not on this OG Switch, I think that has to be a very, very early game on the next platform. Alongside that, though, we have 3 more games here. One more old game, so that's F-Zero GX. We have heard rumblings of this. I lean towards that whole rumor not being true. I feel like maybe they heard about F-Zero 99 or something. I don't really know what happened there, because I feel like Nintendo would have wanted to see how F-Zero 99 did, and then based on that information, evaluate and then make F-Zero GX kind of remastered or remade, whatever it would be. So I lean towards F-Zero GX not happening, but I wanted to mention it because a lot of people do mention it in these types of videos. And then 2 more things here. These are probably not going to happen, but to me, they make sense to. The first of which being a Donkey Kong game. We have not gotten a new Donkey Kong game on Switch. I personally don't have much stake in this camp. I don't love Donkey Kong Country as much as a lot of other people. I don't know who would make it. My shooting for the stars dream for a while there was, if Retro's not doing these games anymore, maybe have Good Feel make a Wooly Donkey Kong game in the style of like Woolly World, but of course with Donkey Kong Country gameplay. That would have been really cool. Doesn't seem like that's happening. I think Good Feel and Nintendo, I don't know if they're really working on anything together, because they're doing that Otage Goemon game, right? But something Donkey Kong related, I feel like has to be coming at least somewhat soon-ish. And then the final thing I want to mention here is Animal Crossing. This is the biggest franchise on Switch, right behind Mario Kart in terms of software sales. I feel like it'd really just be leaving money on the table if they don't release something Animal Crossing related on the Switch. New Horizons is going to turn 4 years old. We're approaching half a decade since New Horizons came out. So I feel like, I'm not saying a new game for Animal Crossing, like a new mainline Animal Crossing. That, of course, would be saved for the next console. But what about a remaster or a remake of New Leaf? I know we've never seen that happen for this franchise, and Nintendo usually kind of has like these rule books, it feels like, for what series gets remakes and remasters versus what doesn't. But I don't know, man. New Leaf would sell really well. They don't need to add anything to it. Just make it look nice, make it look like New Horizons, and that game will sell tens of millions of copies. People would be so excited for New Leaf HD. But even if it's not that, something else, maybe a new party game that's actually good, maybe something, I mean, we already got Happy Home Paradise, but just something else. I feel like Animal Crossing, if you don't make another Animal Crossing game for the Switch, you're just leaving money on the table. Frankly, they've already left that money on the table, but the longer we go without something Animal Crossing related, the worse that feels. I'm not even a huge Animal Crossing fan, but they have to do something with that, right? And that is about it for what I've actually written down here. Worth noting, I did not mention a Kirby game. we will almost certainly get a Kirby game next year. And I want to clarify here, if you got to this point thinking, oh, this person's delusional, think we're going to get all these games next year. I don't think we're getting all 18 of these games next year. I think we'll probably get like 14 of them. Because like I said at the top of the video, Nintendo likes to announce things very, very close to release. Pokemon will be announced on Pokemon Day. Mario Sports will be announced in the February Direct. Mario Party will be announced in the June Direct. Metroid Prime, that could show up anywhere. Fire Emblem, I think, will be February. Nintendo just really likes to announce things close to release. And I think we will continue to see that moving forward. In fact, I think if they could, they would even get that lead time down even more. So maybe we could expect some more shadow drops next year. I think maybe F-Zero GX, that could be one. I don't really have that many other kind of ports like Pikmin 1 and 2 on here. Maybe we could see more stuff like that. Kid Icarus Uprising is a huge talking point in the Nintendo community. I feel like people are really down and gloomy about the potential lineup for this year because they've already resigned themselves to the idea that the Switch 2 has to release in late 2024, and that'll be a restarting point. But I look at 2024, I look at the idea that the Switch 2 might not come out next year, might come out in 2025, and that excites me because it makes me wonder, what will Nintendo do to keep their already pre-existing Switch consumer base happy? And I think about games like Tomodachi Life and Mario Party and maybe a potential Animal Crossing spinoff and Xenoblade Warriors, and I think like, wow, there's still a lot of stuff that just makes sense to release on this hardware, not even saved for the next console. So that is going to do it for this video. Of course, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. How are you feeling about the potential lineup for 2024 on the Nintendo Switch? I'm pretty optimistic. I think it's going to be a great year for the Switch. Maybe nothing super big deal from Nintendo itself, but kind of like I was saying, if we get Metroid Prime 4, Mario Party, and Pokemon in the holiday season, that would pretty much put this year on par with 2021 just inherently, and that was already a pretty good year for the Switch, so I'd be more than happy with that. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Of course, subscribe here for more Nintendo Switch reviews, news, coverage, all of that fun stuff, and follow me on Twitter at BoTalksGames. Until next time, folks, peace.